Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're diving into some really cool stuff today. Excerpts from the Book of Nehemiah.
It's one of my favorites.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like we've been handed this ancient document, right?
Right.
And we got to figure out, okay, who is this Nehemiah guy?
Okay.
What is he trying to do and what's standing in his way?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, it is a wild ride. It's got politics, religion, even ancient economics.
It really, it's a story that really gets to, I think, some of the human elements of leadership and faith and the challenges of rebuilding a community, and not just physically, but spiritually too.
Yeah, okay, so let's dive right in.
Let's do it.
So we find out right away that Nehemiah is not just some average dude. He's the cupbearer to King Artaxerxes. I mean, that's
a big deal.
a big deal, right? What kind of power did that position even have back then?
Well, I mean, think about it. You have the king's ear, you're his cupbearer, you're in the inner circle, you're privy to state secrets, you see the king's moods. So you are a very valuable asset to anybody who wants anything from the king.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also dangerous. You know, if the king falls out of favor with you, things could go very badly.
Yeah, so he's in a pretty precarious position.
He is.
But then he gets some really bad news from back home.
Yeah.
Jerusalem is in ruins. I mean, walls are broken down, the gates are burned. It's just a disaster.
It's a mess.
How does someone in his position even react to that?
Well, I mean, just imagine, hearing about your homeland, the place that holds your heritage and your identity, and it's just defenseless and it would just crush you, right?
Yeah.
But, Nehemiah, instead of panicking or, falling apart, he turns to prayer and he turns to planning, and his prayer is just, it's raw emotion, acknowledging the sin of his people, but he's clever. He's invoking God's promises, and so it really shows that he understands both spiritual and strategic action.
Yeah, he's proactive.
He is.
He's not just waiting for someone else to take care of this.
Absolutely.
He's getting to work himself.
I'm
Curious about his approach with the king, though. He doesn't just rush in there, right?
No.
He waits for the right moment.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Approaching a king with a request is a delicate thing.
Sure.
And Nehemiah really shows his political savvy and how he chooses the moment carefully. He waits until the king asks him about his downcast mood.
Oh.
And this allows him to frame his request not as just a personal desire, but as something that will benefit the king's entire realm.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And he's also really thorough. It's not just, hey, can I go home?
Right.
He's asking for letters for safe passage timber, for rebuilding.
Yeah, he's thinking ahead.
He is.
Absolutely. This really reveals his leadership qualities, his strategic mind. He's anticipating the problems. He's securing resources, thinking logistically. It's not just about going home. It's about going home prepared.
Totally. And of course, he attributes the king's approval to God's favor, which makes me wonder, how does that affect his leadership style once he gets to Jerusalem?
Ooh, that's a good question. Does he see himself as divinely appointed, giving him this unwavering authority? Or does it instill a sense of humility and reliance on God's guidance?
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out.
We'll see how it plays out. So he arrives in Jerusalem
Yeah.
and waits 3 days before doing anything.
Yeah.
That's unexpected.
It is.
Why the delay?
Well, maybe he's gathering intel, assessing the situation on the ground. Or could he be strategically letting those rumors of his arrival and plans spread, gauging reactions before he reveals himself?
Oh, that's a good point.
It's calculated.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then comes the secret nighttime inspection of the walls.
I love this part.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Nehemiah, under the cover of darkness, exploring these crumbling ruins. And he even lists these specific landmarks, the Valley Gate, the Well of the Dragons, the Dung Gate. I mean, it's like a scene straight out of Indiana Jones.
Right.
It is.
But those names, they're more than just evocative imagery. I think they offer clues about Jerusalem's layout, its defenses, even its social structure. I mean, the Dung Gate really suggests a less glamorous side to the city, a reminder that even ancient cities had to deal with waste disposal.
Of course.
Yeah.
So Nehemiah's got his work cut out for him.
He does.
But he's not alone in this, is he?
Not at all. Because he's going to encounter allies and those who really oppose him.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. And we'll meet them in the next part of our deep dive. And trust me, their motivations are just as fascinating as Nehemiah's.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Nehemiah. Last time we left him in Jerusalem, secretly checking out all the damage to the city walls. And it's obvious he's got a lot of work ahead of him.
Yeah.
But before we get into the rebuilding, there's something else going on.
Oh, yeah.
Inside Jerusalem itself.
Yeah, you're right. The physical rebuilding of the wall is just one part of what Nehemiah is facing.
Okay.
He's also dealing with social and economic turmoil within the city itself. And Nehemiah chapter 5 really exposes this dark underbelly of debt famine, even the selling of children into slavery.
So it's almost like there are two walls that have been breached.
Yeah.
One is a wall of stone, and the other is like the wall of their social fabric.
That's a good way to put it.
What's causing all of these problems?
Well, it's complicated. It's a lot of different factors, but, Jerusalem has been through a lot, right?
Yeah,
Years of exile and hardship have taken their toll on the people, and the pressure to rebuild, coupled with these ongoing economic difficulties, it just creates this environment that's ripe for exploitation.
yeah.
The wealthy are taking advantage of the poor, charging these crazy interest rates, seizing collateral, and essentially creating this system of indentured servitude.
So it's not just about rebuilding the physical city.
No,
It's about rebuilding a sense of community,
absolutely.
of justice, of looking out for each other.
It's about restoring the heart of the community.
Right, so how does Nehemiah react to all of this?
He is furious.
Yeah,
He sees this exploitation as a betrayal of their values, the very values that should be binding them together as they rebuild their nation.
yeah.
And, it's interesting, his outrage isn't just about the economic injustice, it's about this erosion of their spiritual and moral foundation.
Right.
He sees it as a direct violation of God's law and their covenant with him.
So he doesn't just sit back and let this happen.
No, he doesn't.
He confronts the wealthy people.
Head on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a powerful confrontation.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't mince words. He calls them out for their greed, profiting off the misery of their own people, and he reminds them of their shared history, their common faith, and the responsibility they have to uphold justice, especially now during this time of rebuilding.
I'm curious about the specific things he demands of them. What's he asking for?
Well, he demands they return the collateral. They've seized things like fields, vineyards, even homes. And he insists that they stop charging interest on loans, which was a radical concept in ancient economic systems where interest was the norm.
So he's calling for a total overhaul
He is.
of their economic practices, putting compassion and fairness above profit.
Above profit, yeah.
But does he even have the power to enforce these demands?
Well, that's the interesting part. He's not just relying on his political authority as governor, he's leveraging his moral authority and their shared religious points.
Okay.
He frames his demands not just as economic reforms, but as a return to their covenant with God, a reminder that their actions have spiritual consequences.
I can imagine this didn't make everyone happy.
Yeah.
Is there pushback?
Well, there's no direct mention of rebellion or outright defiance.
Okay.
But I'm sure there was a lot of grumbling and resentment among those who were profiting from the system.
Yeah.
And to solidify his demands and to really make a point, Nehemiah performs a very symbolic act.
What's that?
He shakes out his garment,
Oh,
essentially invoking a curse on anyone who breaks their oath to uphold justice.
it's a powerful image.
It is.
That goes way beyond just words.
Yeah, right.
He's putting his own authority on the line
Absolutely.
and making it clear that he is serious about holding them accountable.
Mm-hmm.
But this isn't the only opposition that he's facing, is it?
No.
We still have Sanballat and Tobiah in the background.
Exactly. While Nehemiah is dealing with this social injustice within Jerusalem, he's also got these external threats and attempts to sabotage what he's doing.
Oh, wow.
And their tactics are a fascinating mix of psychological warfare, political maneuvering, and even trying to discredit him in the eyes of the king.
It seems like Nehemiah is a pretty great leader.
He is.
He's dealing with problems all around him, both internal and external.
Yeah,
But he stays focused on what he's trying to do.
does.
What are some of the ways that Sanballat and Tobiah try to stop him?
Well, at first, they just resort to ridicule and mockery, hoping to, demoralize the workers and make them want to quit.
Oh, okay.
When that doesn't work, they try to lure Nehemiah out of Jerusalem for a meeting.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
No, their intentions were not good.
Did he go?
No, he did not.
Oh, good.
And I think they were frustrated by that. Nehemiah saw right through their little plan, and he realized that leaving Jerusalem would not only put him in danger, but also leave the city vulnerable.
Right.
He knows he needs to be there both for the physical security and for the morale of everyone who's working.
So their attempts at intimidation and tricking him didn't work.
Right.
What did they try next?
They got really cunning. They started spreading rumors and accusations,
Oh.
hoping to sow seeds of doubt and suspicion about Nehemiah and his loyalty to the king.
It's a classic smear campaign.
Yeah.
Trying to make people afraid and distrustful and hoping to turn the king against Nehemiah or at least slow down his progress. And it's interesting because those kinds of tactics are still used today,
Oh, yeah.
centuries later. Makes you wonder, why are those methods so effective?
Well, I think it's because they exploit our natural human tendencies towards fear and suspicion.
Yeah.
And that tendency to believe the worst about others, especially those in positions of power.
Right. So how did Nehemiah handle these accusations? Did he get distracted trying to defend himself?
Not at all. He was incredibly composed and resilient.
Really?
Yeah, he denied the accusations, seeing them for what they were attempts to sabotage his efforts and distract him from his mission.
Huh.
And he remained focused on the task at hand, trusting that his actions and his integrity would speak for themselves.
That's admirable. I mean, it would be really easy to get bogged down in defending yourself against lies.
Absolutely.
But he knew that giving into those distractions would help his enemies.
Exactly. He understands that the best defense is a good offense.
Right.
And in this case, the best offense is to keep rebuilding,
Yeah.
to prove his loyalty through his actions and not through words.
And in the end, despite all these challenges, he got that wall built.
He did.
That's a huge accomplishment.
It is.
Not just the physical building of it, but also just the leadership and the perseverance
Mm-hmm.
it took to get it done. But I feel like there's more to this story.
Oh, there is. The completion of the wall is a major victory.
Yeah.
But it's not the end of Nehemiah's mission. He still has a lot to do ensuring the city's security, long-term addressing the social and economic issues that still linger,
Right.
and fostering this renewed sense of community and spiritual devotion.
It sounds like the real work is just beginning.
It is.
I can't wait to see how he handles these new challenges
Yeah.
and what his legacy will be.
Let's dive into the final chapter of Nehemiah's story.
Okay.
And we'll witness how he revitalizes Jerusalem, rekindles its spiritual heart, and secures its place in history.
All right, so we're back for the last part of our Nehemiah deep dive.
Yeah.
It's been amazing to see how he dealt with all these threats and all the struggles
Mm-hmm.
to get those walls rebuilt in Jerusalem.
It really is remarkable.
But like we talked about before, a strong wall, that's just the first step.
Right. A truly secure city is one that's thriving, not just physically protected.
Yeah.
And now Nehemiah have to figure out how to repopulate Jerusalem and how to bring back that spiritual center.
So how do you even repopulate a city that's been basically empty for years?
Exactly.
I mean, I doubt it was as easy as just putting up a sign that says welcome home.
No, it definitely wasn't, convincing people to leave everything behind and move to a city that's still struggling. I mean, that wouldn't be an easy sell.
Right.
So Nehemiah, he uses this interesting combination of practicality and appealing to people's spirituality.
Okay.
He uses this system of casting lots.
Casting lots.
Yeah, basically like a lottery.
A lottery.
Yeah, to choose one family out of every 10 families to move back into Jerusalem.
Huh. A biblical lottery.
Right.
That's a really cool way to do it. It sounds like it would ensure that you got a good mix of people.
Yeah, it's
from different backgrounds in different areas.
It's not just about numbers. It's
Okay.
about making a diverse and lively community.
Yeah, and Nehemiah chapter 11 actually lists the families and people who decided to move back.
It does.
Priests, Levites, gatekeepers, singers, just regular people.
Yeah, all walks of life.
It really shows that a strong community needs people from all different walks of life.
It does.
But a city is more than just the people who live there, right?
Right.
It's also about their values, what they believe in, and their sense of purpose.
Exactly.
So how does Nehemiah bring back that spiritual side of things?
Well, this is where Ezra the Strug we talked about before
Right.
comes back into the picture.
He was the one who read the law out loud to everyone,
He was.
and it led to a lot of repentance.
Yeah, and that renewal of their covenant with God.
Right. There's a really powerful moment in the story. It really shows how important it is to have shared values
Mm-hmm.
and a shared purpose. So what's Ezra doing now?
Okay, so picture this. The people are all gathered in Jerusalem for the Festival of Booths.
Okay.
It's a time of remembering and giving thanks.
Right.
And Ezra, he takes center stage again.
Wow.
Thousands of people are there. Their hearts are full of gratitude for the wall being finished.
Yeah.
And then Ezra starts reading from the Book of the Law.
It's like something straight out of a movie.
I know, right?
Everyone's totally silent as they all listen to these ancient words, and you can just feel the weight of history and tradition.
Right.
What was it like for them?
Well, as they hear the law being read aloud, they start to realize their own flaws, the
Yeah.
ways that they've strayed from God's commands.
Yeah.
It becomes this moment of shared reflection and repentance.
So the celebration for the wall actually becomes a way for them to renew their spirits?
Yeah, I think they needed that physical reminder of their strength and their unity before they could really look inward
Yeah.
and deal with their spiritual needs.
That's a great point. Sometimes we need something concrete,
Yes,
a symbol of security to help us focus on what's going on inside us,
absolutely.
to rebuild our values and remember that we're connected to something bigger than ourselves.
Mm.
So how do they put all of this newfound awareness into action?
Well, they make a solemn oath, a serious agreement to uphold the law in every part of their lives.
Wow.
It's not just empty promises. They make specific commitments, things like no more intermarriage with their neighbors.
Oh, okay.
Strictly observing the Sabbath and the sabbatical year, contributing money to the temple, supporting the Levites in their work.
It's cool to see how they took these big spiritual goals and turned them into everyday actions.
It is.
It's not enough to just feel bad about the things you've done wrong. You have to change your behavior
Mm-hmm.
and live a life that lines up with your renewed faith.
Absolutely.
And to make it really official, they even sign a written covenant,
They do.
an actual document with all their names and promises on it.
Yeah, it's a really powerful symbol.
It is. It shows how much they were dedicated to living a new way of life.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have to take our promises and make them real, you know?
Yeah.
We write them down so we can remember them and so we can be accountable to ourselves and to our community.
It's about taking something personal
Yeah.
and making it a shared agreement.
This deep dive into Nehemiah has been incredible.
I agree.
We went way beyond just the story of rebuilding a wall.
We did.
We talked about leadership, faith, resilience, social justice, and spiritual renewal.
Nehemiah's story is still relevant today because it's about the challenges we all face when we try to rebuild our lives or our communities.
Right. Nehemiah's story shows us that true strength isn't just about physical things.
Mm-hmm.
It's about what we believe in our commitment to justice and being willing to face problems both outside and inside our communities.
Nehemiah is a great example of a leader.
He is.
Not just because he was smart and knew how to handle politics, but also because he was compassionate, he had strong faith, and he was dedicated to building a better future for his people.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
we want you to think about what walls you need to rebuild in your own life.
That's a great question.
What injustices do you see that you need to address?
Yeah.
And what can you learn from Nehemiah's unwavering commitment to making things better?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.